Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and in this video I'm showing you how I blended these flower illustrations into the watercolor effect I created in the background. And this is all using Procreate. As you can see, here is the watercolor effect I made behind the flowers. It's just a layer underneath the flower illustrations I did in the last video. I'll link that here if you want to watch that. To paint the watercolor effect behind the flowers, I used the paintbrush under the section water and I selected wash. In this video, I'll show you how I blend the flowers into this effect I created. So we're going to tap on the smudge tool and go under the section water and select water bleed. This creates a really saturated watercolor effect, and it's what we're going to use to smudge these flowers into this wash. So I have the brush set to pretty small. I have this canvas set to 16 inches by 16 inches, and opacity is at about 80%. All I'm going to do is wherever the color touches the flowers, like right here, there's a purple splotch right next to this petal. I want to make it look like that petal just naturally bleeds right into that color. So I'm taking the very edge of the petal and I'm lightly going around the perimeter of it just to make it bleed out a bit. And I'm doing the same on the top petal right above where I was just working. And I noticed that with this brush, when you kind of twirl it around, it makes more drips, almost like areas where the water was sitting more with more pigment. It kind of gives that look. I hope what I'm saying makes sense. You know, when you're using watercolor and you have an area that's a little bit more saturated with water and pigment, it leaves a little bit of a splotch. When you move this smudge tool around on the flower layer where it's already painted, if you really go back and forth with it, it gives more of that effect and really makes it look drippy, kind of. And depending on what areas I'm smudging, I'm changing up how I'm moving and smudging the color around. So with this leaf, there's little pointy edges around the perimeter of it. I grabbed the smudge tool and I smudged outwards along with the shape of the edge. So I went to each point and smudged them out to make it look like the shape and the painting I made was like meeting a puddle of water right there where I put the green splotch in the background. I hate that word, I keep saying that word, splotch. And essentially I'm doing the same thing with this leaf. I'm going, especially in the areas where on the wash background layer, where there's more color and more pigment, I'm smudging the leaf in those areas more, because if it were actually meeting water in those areas, it would be blurrier there. Blurrier? It would be more blurry there. So I'm trying to blend areas like that that have more water going on. I also try to keep in mind gravity. So I'll show you what I mean in these next few flower petals I end up smudging. But with this flower petal right here on this rose, I lightly went around the perimeter of this petal right here that's kind of curving backwards. And because it's a lot darker, I tried really hard to blend it in a way where it doesn't look muddy. I wanted there to still be a distinction between the flower and the wash in the background. So in the wash area in the background where it's very light pink, I only smudged it a little bit And then in the areas where the wash in the background gets a lot more saturated, I created a little bit more of a dense drip going on. And it just gives a sense of like, in that area, more of the paint and the water is pooling up and dripping down. So right here, where it's very saturated, I'm creating a drip going downwards, and I'm making certain areas of that drip a lot more dense looking than others. I'm trying to keep it very irregular looking. This leaf I'm about to work on is an excellent example on just showing how I did that same process, creating a drip. I felt like because the leaf was pointing downwards and I already created a little bit of a drip in the background where the wash is anyways, I was like, okay, I should smudge the leaf down a little bit just to really blend it in and give a sense of like water running down with the pigment and bleeding downwards. As you can see, I did the same thing with this rose petal right here. I'm bleeding the petal down with the drip I created in the background previously. Right here you can see really well that when you smudge back and forth using this brush, it really gives the effect of a lot of water droplets on top of the pigment or color you're using. It looks really real. It genuinely looks really real. Like you can see the texture of like the paper it would be on and everything. I love it so much. In areas where colors meet, I tried to be careful with this, but I did mix the colors a little bit. I didn't want to do it too much because I didn't want to muddy the colors together and just make it look like one giant mess, but I did mix the red and the green a little bit, just again to give an added effect that it looks like genuine watercolor. And I really tried my best to make this look as traditional as possible with digital brushes. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to speed up the rest of the process just so you guys can see like what I did with the entire painting. But I essentially did the same stuff over and over. Right here where it's really pigmented, again, I'm smudging down into the drip to make it look really natural, but I'm keeping the really dark colors closer to the rose petal, and I'm not trying to drag that color completely all the way down. I want it to look natural, so what I'm doing is I'm keeping the smudged darker colors closer to the rose itself, and I'm not trying to drag it all the way down the drip. I'm letting it fade gradually out into the wash. This just makes it have a really natural bleed effect. I'm super happy with how this turned out. Oh my god, and I can't wait to have it as the printed canvas that people are going to use as the guest book at our wedding. That's why I illustrated this. I love it so much, and I'm going to use it on the invitations, and yes. And I'm probably going to show that process too. Anyways, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you next week. Bye!